So I'm going to preach now, and it's a sort of game of two halves this morning. But if you would turn with me to the Song of Songs, we'll read a passage from that in a moment or two. So if you have difficulty finding Song of Songs, the Psalms, go to the Psalms and then go forward. You'll find Proverbs and then Ecclesiastes and then Song of Solomon. They're all quite small, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes and Song of Solomon. Peter's got Bibles. If you would like a Bible, pop your hand up and he'll bring you one. So turn to Psalms and go forward a couple of tiny books and you'll find the Song of Songs, or as was called Solomon's Song of Solomon. And we're going to read a portion from chapter 2 in a minute. But I just want to start just with, if we could have the dedicated slide up, Robin, that would be great. Just want to share my heart. I was very acutely aware that we launched this series last week. Mel very ably launched the series, and in many ways it's her series. And I wasn't here. I was at Greenbelt. It was marvellous. Listening to John Bell answer the question, did God save Donald Trump? Fantastic talk. Absolutely wonderful. Do you know what? Who would like to guess what the answer was? In a word? No. What he did was, this isn't my sermon, but anyway, he did a little examination of the biblical narrative and asked the question, does a narrow miss indicate God's wholehearted approval of all you are and do? Answer, no. Actually, what he showed really in an amazingly illustrated way is that a narrow miss or a dramatic healing or a major intervention of God in your life is often a call to attention, a call to examine your life, your values, what you're living for, and maybe change direction just slightly. Anyway, I better not get too political, but it was fantastic. Anyway, I wasn't here, and Mel launched this series which will take us to the 13th of October. So if you've got an electronic diary, a written diary, get it out now. You need to put the 13th of October in your diary. That day, there will be no 3 p.m, there will be no 6 p.m. We will all gather here at 10:30 for a service of dedication. Who else wants to sing? Dedication, dedication. I was showing my age, Roy Castle and his dedication. So we're having a little series that builds to that day, really because Mel said, I think if we're going to do this, we better make sure we all understand what we mean by dedication. And so I'm going to do a little bit of an explanation of how we came to the idea of even having a dedication day. It's going to be an opportunity for us to offer ourselves again, or for the first time, our gifts, our devotion, our time, our energy, our callings to God. But if you've been in this church for any amount of time, you know that September, October time, we would usually have a thing called a Vision Day, and that you'll not find that in our church diary this year. It's really been replaced by this. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is you. You're the reason. As I particularly thought about this church and what's been going on in the last year, 2 years, I felt myself moved to see your dedication, to recognize your dedication. We have had a particularly extraordinary year, a really strong period of uncertainty. We've gone through change like we've never experienced I've been here for next October, it'll be 25 years I've been here. We've never had a period like this in the time that I've been here. A change, challenge, upheaval, and I want to say a combination of two things. A combination of amazing growth and of painful diminishment. Maybe you want to personally take a moment to think, what have you felt in those two areas? Maybe you felt much more diminishment than growth, or much more growth than diminishment. As a church, we've seen diminishment. Our children's ministry has come out of COVID diminished and is still struggling to recover its energy and its numbers that it once had. We used to have an evacuation on a Sunday morning when they went out to their groups with 40, 50 kids going out. We have lost members. Precious, loved members have left. I think all have gone to other churches. So it's good for us to know that we haven't lost them to the church. We've just lost them to this church. We've seen the closure of Rainbow, which was planned and felt to be a really good thing, and we did it really, really well, but it's a diminishment. And we've had an unprecedented loss of ministerial staff, have we not? Rob Stevens in August 22, Steve in February, March of this year, Caroline briefly on maternity leave. So we've gone from almost 4 with 3 3/4 ministers in August 2022 to 1 1/3. Mel works a third at the moment for us in June 24. Really, really remarkable. And some of us, myself included, have faced extraordinary personal challenges. So diminishment, and that's just some of the ones that I've thought of. And then growth, some quirky growth. Come out of COVID and the Children's Centre has just mushroomed. It's bursting out of the place. Community space. We started Community Fridge. Edna had that just incredible sense of God's urgency just before COVID came. Started Community Fridge just in time for COVID. And they'd done a fantastic work through COVID. And then since the bills went up and we decided to open community space, it's just buzzing in here with people from our community who feel this place to be their home church. Prayer. When we've done this, the beginnings of our call to prayer, and it is just a beginning of a call to prayer, in the last few months has been an amazing response. It's been fantastic to see the prophetic begin to really grow again. And for me, an increased sense of togetherness, of commitment, of dedication. And I've said before, dare say it again, that would make me cry. Our leadership team have been absolutely extraordinary in these times. Extraordinary to reshape what they've done, what they're willing to do, because our leadership team of a year ago had a very different role to what our leadership team of today has. So I felt that instead of have a vision day where we say, this is where we're going this year, I wanted to say, this is who we are this year. We're a dedicated body of people. And I want to recognize what we've already stepped in and up to. And for some of us, just clung on. For me, it's sort of been a clinging on rather than a feeling of stepping up. But for many of you, a stepping up, a stepping in, a presence, a dedication to God's call in our lives and this expression of church here at Bookham Baptist. But also to restate our intention, and to do that, sort of draw a line in the sand, say, no, I am up for this. I'm not going to live my life crazy, but I am up for this. God's got a beautiful rhythm for our lives that allows us to express our callings and still have a nap in the afternoon. Oh yeah, he does. And there's an element of spiritual warfare to this. There's an element of stepping up and saying, this is who we are. Bring it on. We are not backing off. We've got a call for this to this place and to way beyond our borders. And we are going to stand up to our call. And as we talked about it, as I said, Mel said, no, we really have to think about this word dedication. And so we started a series last week. She looked at the what of dedication. She sort of defined dedication. She looked at the dedication of Solomon's temple and what it looked like. And this week, it's a little bit more of the why of dedication. The dedication's not our initiative, and although I've just expressed it like it's very much part of our will, it's a choice we make. It is a choice we make, but our will, of course, is crafted by a creator. And so all that flows from us that is good has originated in our benevolent creator. And so it's not our initiative, it's come from God, but it is also a response to God. He invites us with his love to respond to him. And that's what brings us to Song of Songs. So if you have the book open already, turn to chapter 2. And there's been a lot of historical debate about this book and what it really stands for, but I'm not going to get into that. It lacks religious themes of any kind, really, in practices. It lacks any references to law, grace, sin, salvation, or prayer, and even undisputed references to God. It doesn't really have. And it's been called, by one commentator I read this week, it's been called the lock for which no key has yet been found. An interpretative key, that is. But anyway, let's read this passage, and I want to just pause for a moment of silence before we read it, and then I'll just take a pause of silence to let it percolate after. Verse 10 of chapter 2. My beloved spoke and said to me, "Arise, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me. See, the winter is past, the rains are over and gone. Flowers appearing on the earth, the season of singing has come, the cooing of doves is heard in our land. The fig tree forms its early fruit, the blossoming vines spread their fragrance. Arise, come, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me." Did you hear that? Do you hear the voice of God inviting you, calling you his beloved, saying, "Arise, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me"? As I say, there has been some debate about what this passage, what this book is about, but there is an undeniable conclusion, which I do believe in, that is, there's a very clear connection in this passage, seeing God as the bridegroom and the church as his bride. It's a biblical theme. It's easy to see here, and that is the approach that I want to take this morning. What we find, if you read it, and I would encourage you to read it, it's only 8 chapters and it's a beautiful read. But it's poetry and it's about love. And as you read it, what you'll find is a theme of longing, or two lovers who are separated, longing for one another. There's tremendous tenderness, there's hope, there's love, there's appreciation of beauty. It's beautiful. So what does it mean about our dedication? Well, the first thing it means is that we have a passionate God. He's not dispassionate, he's not cold, he's not inattentive, he's not drowsy. We have a God who is moved by us, not unmoved, but passionate for us, not dispassionate. Now, I don't know how well that fits with your idea of God. And when you read the Song of Songs, you may be offended by how sexual it is and the idea that we would associate that with God. But it made it into the canon. It made it into the canon. And we are sexual people, made that way by our God. I don't think it's helpful to sexualize God, but to understand him to be a passionate lover of our souls. That's what we need to see. That he is not a cold and distant father that we need to cry to get his attention. He moves us. He moves toward us before we move toward him. The initiative is with him. He first loved us, or first dedicated himself to us. Before we loved him, dedicated ourselves to him, he first dedicated himself to us. We love because he first loved us. That is, we are capable of love because he loved us. Without his love for us, we are not capable of love. Without his love for us, we don't exist. The minute God's love for us ends, creation is gone. Everything is made by his love and held together in his love. And even as we falteringly move toward him, he promises to meet with us. He says, come near to God, and he will come near to us. So he moves toward us. He makes us family. Romans says, for those who are led by the Spirit of God are children of God, and by him we cry, Daddy. The most intimate cry, Abba, Father, or Daddy. The Spirit testifies with our spirit that we are children of God. So he makes us family. He comes to us in a flawless faithfulness, in the full knowledge that we will be unfaithful. He comes to us with flawless faithfulness, in the full knowledge that we will be unfaithful. He says, I will never, ever, ever fail you. Though you spit in my face, I will love you. Isaiah 40, all people are like grass, and all their faithfulness is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers, and the flowers fall, because the breath of the Lord blows on them. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of our God endures forever. I had such a banquet of passages that I could have used to talk about God's faithfulness and love for us. The Bible is just rammed with it. But we could read Hosea. Hosea is one of the most remarkable of the minor prophets. I'm really glad I'm not a minor prophet. It's a horrible name for the prophet, isn't it? There's a major prophet and then there's a minor prophet. They said some fantastic things of minor prophets. And Hosea is this incredible story of a man called to marry a woman who he knows will be unfaithful repeatedly. And how he gives himself to her over and over and over again. Now, this is an image of God's love. So don't hear me say something about our earthly relationships in that. We have to be careful not to allow ourselves to be abused. But God has an unending faithfulness for us, irrespective of how we are to him. And so he chooses to settle his unending, undying love without condition upon us. Just close your eyes for a minute and just think about what does that look like in your head as you sit in that chair this morning and I say to you, God chooses to settle upon your life his unending, undying, unconditional love. So, how do we respond? How do we respond to that? Well, there's this kind of funny interplay, I think, between our free will and our dependence on him for our very existence. So it's easy to see it as a very binary thing. God does his thing, and over here I do my thing. He decides to offer to me his unconditional, unending love, and I okay then, respond. But it's a bit more complex than that, because he creates my heart. He creates my heart, and he sees my motivations. He sees the direction of my life. He sees my weaknesses and my preferences. And he sees the movement of my heart, even as if a fractional movement toward him. He sees that, and he meets me there. Because you see, he knows me, he knows you better than anyone will ever know. He knows you better than you know you. He knows what moves you. And so our response is dependent on him a little bit. I don't want to say it's completely, free will is detached from God. Free will is not completely detached from God, because God created our free will. But we do at the same time have this miracle of choice, that God in his incredible sovereignty sets us free to choose him and says, your love is valuable to me because you give it to me freely, because you give it to me from your heart. You choose to, and you can choose to turn your back. But because you choose to turn to me, that is just his joy complete. And so, how do we respond? I want to say we must respond in prayer. We must respond in prayer. And even if our prayer life is short, and it's a bit rubbish, and my prayer life's been short at times, the prayer can be, create my response, God. Create my prayer in me. Do you see what I mean? I have the desire to have the desire. That's one of Ignatius's great things. You can have the desire to have the desire. I want to desire to have the desire to pray. God, would you give me the desire to have the desire to pray? Do you see what I mean? And God's like, that's enough. That's enough. A fraction of 1%, Jill. That's all I want. You give me the desire to have the desire. Yeah, I'll give you that. So he's not like an examiner, God, like he picks over our attention and our effort and our energy. No, he wholeheartedly breathes in every fragment that we're willing to give him. And so to pray that God would create our response, our loving response, and to know that at the same time, because of the nature of free will, we have the freedom. I have a freedom that you don't have, and you have a freedom that I don't have. You have a freedom that only you have. Only you have the freedom to give you to God. Only you can give you. And that's what God wants. He wants you. Hook, line, and sinker, everything of you.